incredible to think of how much we have accomplished on our journey together. 2 million jobs. The stock market is at an all-time high. Massive tax cuts. Our border is now strong. Enthusiasm is booming.
Frigid cold will make for dangerous conditions for anyone planning to be outdoors to ring in the new year.
The NYPD says there is no specific credible threat to Times Square or to New York City.
President Trump showing support for a wave of anti-government protests that have broken out in Iran. The president tweeting, "I use social media not because I like to, but because it is the only way to fight a very dishonest and unfair press."
The lack of respect that they have for the office and the president of the United States is uncharted.
I want to wish every American a very happy New Year.
Good morning and happy New Year. Not from New York, but from New Zealand. You're taking a live look at Auckland, where the clock just struck 12 midnight.
The city is ringing in 2018 with a major, look at that, major fireworks show.
But we do still have a few hours left of 2017 here in the U.S., and we want to know, what is your New Year's resolution? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, or tweet us using the hashtag Fox News 2018.
I'll never fully understand how far ahead other parts of the Earth are. I know the Earth is round.
You know
we have time zones, and it still always blows my mind. It's 6 a.m. here, but it's already the future there.
It's already the future.
Next year.
It's next year, yeah. I mean, what could happen?
A lot is happening.
We should ask them.
We should ask them, yeah, what's the future like?
Ask whoever was, ask the camera guy. Who's taking that picture? Somebody in a helicopter.
I think that's a feed. I don't know that that's a Fox News Channel helicopter right there.
Could be a drone.
It could be a drone. You're right. We live in a new age. 2018. Where will the drones go? I mean, the possibilities are endless as we enter this new year. That's what's fun about the new year, right?
It is. It is. We'll talk about resolutions later, but you got to get to the news.
We will. Friends@foxnews.com. Email us your resolutions. We will share ours later as well. But first, a Fox News alert. The growing protests in Iran now turning deadly. 2 demonstrators shot and killed overnight.
The nationwide anti-government rallies turning more violent by the day as the Iranian military vows to fight back.
Garrett Tenney is live in Washington with more on this. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, y'all. These protests show no signs of letting up. For the 3rd consecutive night, thousands of people across Iran took to the streets to protest the Islamic Republic's government. Iran's state media has largely avoided reporting on the rallies, which are spreading in part to videos like these posted on social media, which purportedly show clashes between the demonstrators and police. Last night, those clashes turned deadly. A government official confirmed to a semi-official news agency in Iran that 2 protesters were killed at a rally overnight. Officials say at least 50 protesters have been arrested since Thursday. Behind these protests is Iran's struggling economy. Despite billions of dollars flowing into the country after the signing of the nuclear deal, life for the average Iranian citizen hasn't improved. The Associated Press reports unemployment remains high, inflation is around 10%, and the prices for eggs and chicken have recently shot up by as much as 40%. These latest protests are the largest to hit the Islamic Republic since 2009, following that country's disputed presidential election. Back to y'all.
That's right, Garrett Tenney. Thanks a lot this morning.
Garrett.
Well, a lot of people felt like, looking back to 2009, like President Obama missed an opportunity to support dissidents and freedom seekers who were pushing back. The protests in 2009 were even much larger than the ones that are happening today. It felt like a revolution in 2009, whereas today, some are framing it more as a civil rights movement that could potentially turn into something larger as well. But the president chiming in on this.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And by the way, we're going to look at that tweet, but this tweet proves that he is diametrically opposed to the way Barack Obama handled that revolution. So let's take a look at that tweet. He says, the entire world understands that the good people of Iran want change, and other than the vast military power of the United States, that Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most.
And I was just reading about this in the Washington Post, to Pete's point about how this is more of a civil rights movement. Nobody knows who's in charge of these protests. There's no single leader. The events seem to be popping up all over Iran, not in the capital. Yeah. And it is surprising, well, maybe not surprising, that somebody would take a shot at the president for supporting the protests. But, you know, Iran and their military are responsible for a lot of the IEDs that kill U.S. soldiers in Iraq. That's something that the president has talked a lot about over the last couple of years as he's been running for president and since he's become president. And so Maybe not so much of a surprise.
First of all, if you're the central leader of the resistance to the Islamic Republic, you're going to be targeted and thrown in jail, which is the nature of that regime.
And they were during the Green Revolution. Lots of them were. So and before that, in 1988, 30,000 prisoners
ever since
were executed.
1979, the Ayatollah has reigned with an iron fist based on this Islamic utopian vision. Turns out it hasn't worked so well. And the people there were sold after the Iranian deal that the economy would improve, that it would trickle down to average Iranians. Well, inflation's gone up by 10%. Eggs and basic items are up 40%. Unemployment is up. There's endemic economic mismanagement and corruption. And women are still saying, hey, we used to have a lot of rights. Now we don't have any at all, or very few. That's percolating under the surface of a regime that's going into Iraq and Syria and supporting Hezbollah, spending a ton of money on foreign adventures to pursue their Islamic vision.
And you talk about the Iran deal. Part of that, big economic sanctions. The sanctions keep coming because the leaders there keep breaking the rules. And so people are going to be upset about the economy. They can thank their leaders for that.
And I think that's why it's so important that President Trump is really focusing on the people and what the people are saying on the streets. And I think that his tweet actually reflects that. We know
American leadership matters. Being quiet and hoping something happens. Because there's some on the left that are like, oh, by him chiming in, it's going to hurt the protesters and undermine their. No way. America is the beacon of freedom in the world. If you speak up for those who don't have a voice, that empowers those people very much. So the propagandists will say what they want.
And we know that because we've seen interviews with people who were dissidents, say, in the Soviet Union, who said when President Reagan talked about us, when he referenced us, it gave us hope that somebody was listening out there. Because remember, they're there and not sure how their protests are having an impact. And if it reaches the ears of the President of the United States and he's tweeting about you, you got to believe that this could possibly be as big as maybe the Green Revolution.
It's an important development. Well, Twitter has been the vehicle by which this president has been able to amplify his voice. He started 2017 with it, and he's going to end 2017 with it. He had a tweet yesterday about social media, which we're going to talk a little bit more. The banner there says, Commander in tweet. Well, this is what he tweeted yesterday. He said, I use social media, not because I like to, but because it's the only way to fight a very dishonest and unfair press, now often referred to as the fake news media. Phony and non-existent sources are being used more than ever. Many stories and reports a pure fiction. In fact, there was a story in the New York Times, which the president always labels as failing this morning, based on anonymous sources from a drunk conversation at a bar about how the Russia investigation was started. We're going to talk about it later on in the program, but it continues to feed that narrative.
Yeah, and Harlan Hill, she's a political consultant on Trump, and she had a social media. Harlan.
That's okay.
He was talking about it. Let's see this clip.
When you look at how the media has covered him over the last year, just 5% of their coverage has been positive. Comparing that to Obama, right, in his first year, their coverage was glowing. On the cover of Newsweek magazine, they literally put a halo behind Obama's head to make him look like he was Jesus, right? And meanwhile, you have magazines holding up a severed head of the President of the United States, President Trump. You have comedians doing the same thing in Hollywood. The coverage that he has gotten, the lack of respect that they have for the office and the President of the United States is uncharted.
And Trump's whole thing is that's the only way that he has an unfiltered message. It's not just unfiltered through the press, it's unfiltered through his team. And I remember during the transition last year, one of his very senior team members told me that he turned off all notifications on his phone. The only time his phone would ever make noise was a little ding when the president tweeted, and that's how we found out about it. No,
listen, he has been successful in changing narratives across the spectrum and changing conversations with new viewpoints. Right. So we were asked to talk about our favorite presidential tweets of 2017.
This is fun.
We're going to ask you to email in yours, friends@foxnews.com. Which Trump tweet did you like the most? Listen, I was greedy. I said I can't just pick one. I got to have two.
It's New Year's. I'm
going to indulge today. So I've got my two favorite presidential tweets of 2017. The first is of this one. Of course, terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. I think this was from March.
Why did you love that tweet?
Because it's been proved to be correct. And the left went nuts saying he's got no substantiation. There's no evidence. And over time, it's been proved, whether it's Paul Manafort or other people around him, that there was surveillance of him and his team, and everyone said it's a lie, he has no proof. Turned out he was pretty spot on. Well, I also loved this one. The second one said, the fake news media, the failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, and CNN is not my enemy. It's the enemy of the American people. And once again, sent the media into hysterics. How dare you call us the enemy? Don't you understand how important we are? And as journalists, what a role we play. Listen, I get it. But if you're not doing your job well and you're not being fair, or you're telling people you're fair, but you're actually extremely biased, you're an enemy to truth. You're an enemy to an honest conversation about what this country faces. This guy's critique of the media will live on for generations, and media will have to learn to get it right, or they won't be trusted in this country.
And part of that is why I picked this one. It's my tweet. It talks to the impact of his Twitter account and just how crazy fast the news cycle is. Remember this? My Twitter account was taken down for 11 minutes by a rogue employee. I guess the word must finally be getting out and having an impact. And that was a huge thing. It's this way, it's an official White House statement.
It's the resistance, right?
Some guy on his way out took it down for 11 minutes, and then like an hour later, nobody's talking about it.
It's amazing.
All right, my favorite tweet was when these basketball players were caught shoplifting in China. The president got him out, and then the dad, who, as a mom, I would be so grateful you kept my kid out of a Chinese prison. And the father was not very grateful, and so the president tweeted at him and said, LeVar, you could have spent the next 5 to 10 years during Thanksgiving with your son in China, but no NBA contract to support you. But remember, LeVar, shoplifting is not a little thing. It's a really big thing, especially in China. Ungrateful fool. This is when Donald Trump really channels what we are all thinking. And again, another example of why he has to use Twitter, because imagine if Barack Obama had gotten these basketball players out. I mean, there'd practically be,
probably a parade.
A parade for Obama that he got them out, and he got very little credit. And unless he sort of toots his own horn, he doesn't get it.
That's exactly right. He also tweeted during that maybe I should have left him in jail.
Yeah, that was the part I liked.
That got picked him up on his next trip in 10 years.
That's right. Yeah. So let us know. Friends at foxnews.com. We're going to bring you the greatest hits. Help us with the ones we don't forget. There's so many out there.
There are so many.
We know they're top of mind for you.
Start scrolling.
That's right.
All right. We also have this today. From snipers to barricades, New Year's Eve security will be unprecedented coast to coast. Our next guest, a former chief investigator, joins us with the biggest threat that is nearly impossible to predict.
And his city's dealing with a homeless crisis and a failing subway system. But apparently New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio thinks that he deserves a raise.
And the countdown to 2018 is on, and Rick is in the middle of all the New Year's Eve action in Times Square. Rick, what do you have for us? You look...
Good morning, and not in Times Square, above Times Square. We're way up above. This is the actual ball, guys. We have the best seat in the house all morning long. We're going to be figuring out what's new about it this year, and all the events are going to be coming up here in New Year's Eve right in Times Square. All the details right here on Fox and Friends all morning right now. We will be right back.
Welcome back. A Fox News alert. Unprecedented security in cities across America ahead of tonight's New Year's Eve celebrations. More than 1 million people expected to ring in 2018 here in New York City.
So what's law enforcement doing to keep everybody safe?
Steve Cardian is a former Westchester County police sergeant and a former chief investigator for the New York City Department of Investigation, and he joins us now to weigh in. So, Steve, we were just talking a little bit about how one of the biggest threats or biggest concerns for the NYPD tonight would be somebody like a Vegas shooter, Stephen Paddock, that's not even on their radar. How do you stop that?
Well, that's their big concern. The unknown is what is really a big threat to them. But the NYPD is making a statement. They're all over the media. You've never seen this type of activity with the NYPD. And they're saying, not tonight, not on my watch, and if you come, we're ready.
And so, but it's not just the inner circle of Times Square. I mean, sure, they're shutting down parking garages. I mean, they're sealing manholes. I mean, all the things that we hear to take on. But you're going to have choke points. You're going to have places where people gather to go through security points. That may not be Times Central, but if a bomb were to go off there, they're going to say an attack at Times Square, right? How do you prevent that?
There's 12 entry points. You're going to have surveillance, again, unprecedented. You're going to have spotters in the crowd. They're going to be looking for pre-indicators of behavior that might be indicative of someone wanting to do something bad. Take the Manchester bombing with Ariel Grande, in which you had a skinny guy with a jacket out to here, looked at a place, made him look like he was 200 pounds. Nobody spotted it. So they'll have spotters, pre-indicators of behavior or what they're going to be looking for.
How has the Vegas massacre changed the way they're policing in Times Square? Because there are huge, tall buildings all around it. So how has that changed it?
Well, they've always had snipers, but tonight we're going to see a crazy amount of people in positions that you've never seen before, because that incident, the Vegas incident, changed the way every time something like this happens, it changes the way law enforcement approaches.
Are they going to go room by room
and
all the rooms overlooking Times Square? I mean, honestly, do they have the ability to go into those hotel rooms the day of and make sure someone's doesn't have a cache of weapons?
There is a designated officer that's working with each hotel. And so I'm sure that that's being done to some degree, but there's an officer or a group of officers that are assigned to the major hotels, especially the ones that are facing.
Right, and they're probably tracking, is somebody doing something kind of unusual? They said that the man who did that in Las Vegas, he was in his room for days on end. They could see maybe that was.
Well, the employees are told to look for specific things that would be a red flag for law enforcement, if you will.
On a night like tonight, though, you mentioned the Manchester attack where somebody was wearing a bulky coat, wasn't noticed. It was the middle of the summer. It's going to be 10 degrees tonight.
Right.
Everybody will be bundled up.
Yeah.
And earlier this month, we saw somebody go to the Port Authority bus terminal 10 blocks away with a device on them. How can the NYPD possibly stop everybody wearing a big, puffy coat from coming in with something like that?
They're set up so that you can't prevent everything. There is always going to be evil people. If something happens, they're going to minimize the damage that it causes. And it will likely be at one of the entrances. And
Steve, only a fraction of our viewers are attending something here in New York City. The same things for local police departments, more or less, at celebrations across America?
All over the country. From small to big. There's soft targets. Every police agency across the country, no matter how big or small, has identified their soft targets years ago. And, D.C.'s got a problem, Philadelphia, L.A., all the major cities.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming by. And by the way,
pleasure.
The Superpower Women, great book that you gave me for, especially if young girls going off to college like I do in a year. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The PC police has a new target to silence conservative speech. The Reverend Franklin Graham is there. A plot to ban him from the entire country.
Okay. And from surfing to... that was me. Airballing dunk contests. You never know what's going to happen on Fox and Friends on the Plaza. The top weekend moments of 2017 in a video montage that we haven't even seen.
Wow, that looks fun. All right, some quick headlines for you. Several UK officials want preacher Franklin Graham banned from their country over accusations of hate speech. He's scheduled to appear at a festival in September organized by one of his religious charities. Graham is under fire for speaking out against gay marriage and criticizing Islam. Some say his visit would promote prejudice and damage interfaith relations. And Pope Francis is joining the fight against fake news. The Vatican says the Holy Father will stress the importance of truthful journalism next month ahead of the Church's celebration of World Communications Day. His message will focus on the causes and consequences of irresponsible reporting.
Thanks, Rachel. Well, a jubilant President Trump predicting even more winning for 2017, tweeting this. He said, jobs are kicking in and companies are coming back to the U.S. Unnecessary regulations and high taxes are being dramatically cut, and it will only get better, much more to come. The stock market adding more than $6 trillion since he took office as unemployment hits a 17-year low. So what can we expect for the new year? Here to debate, Fox News contributor Richard Fowler and host at The Blaze, Lawrence Jones. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here this morning.
Good to be here.
So, Richard, you look at those numbers. Unemployment 17-year low, tax cuts, energy renaissance, deregulation, black unemployment has dropped dramatically. Illegal immigration has been curtailed. If you're a supporter of the president or want America to return as a robust economy, you're feeling pretty good going into 2018, right?
Yeah, I think there's reasons to celebrate this president's achievements so far, but I think that you have to look at that also with the fact that there is more for this president to do. He ran on making sure that we pass an infrastructure bill. That hasn't happened yet. He ran on making sure we would build a wall on the Mexican border. That hasn't happened yet. He ran on why we should repeal the Affordable Care Act. That hasn't happened. These are all things that he ran on that he said would get done in his first year that he has not gotten done yet. And you can't blame Democrats for that because Republicans have both control of the United States House and the United States Senate.
Fair enough, Richard. So, Lawrence, over to you. I mean, the president has said he wants to make the wall a priority inside DACA. They did repeal the individual mandate, and infrastructure's on the docket. So in light of what has been done, how do you feel about 2018?
Well, at the end of the day, it's about tangible items. And what the American people see is constant job growth. We see the stock market surging. We see consumer confidence up, GDP 3.2%. So this is something that the American people can actually feel. They're going to get more money in their pocket now with the tax bill. And despite Democrats saying that they hate it, I know Richard is being reasonable right now, but a lot of Democrats say they hate it, but they're going to take the bonus from Christmas. A lot of Democrats say they hate it, but they're definitely going to take the tax cut. Even the mainstream media, people like MSNBC, say that they hated the bill, but they got a bonus during Christmas. So this is something that the American people can actually feel. A lot of Congress is saying that they should feel it sometime between February and March where they should see more money in their bank account. I think that's pretty good.
Richard,
I'm not sure if people are seeing bonuses. I think what you're seeing is actually a lot of folks, not only in blue states, but in places like Fairfax, Virginia, and other parts, Americans rushing to their city appraiser to pay their tax bill before, before it's actually due, so they don't have to get penalized with the fact that the Republicans change the rules on how you can deduct your state and local income tax. Yeah, and not to mention the fact that none of us have seen any benefit from this tax bill, and it's the most unpopular tax bill ever passed in American history.
We'll see what happens in February when the effects start to kick in.
Well, we'll see, but the jury's still out. Let's be very clear.
At the end of the day, a lot of Democrats are saying, hey, it's not that much money, which shows how
but you just said we took tax credits that we never got.
When people are going to see more money in their bank account, and when you have Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck, a bit of money is going to help. When you see corporations that are now going to get a cut, they're going to hire more people.
No, wait.
The Democrats can try this talking point.
Lawrence, I will give you the fact that the American people will see money they will see some money in their paycheck because the rate will go down. But let's talk about corporations.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
No, but let's talk about corporations for just a second because I think that's a farce. Apple, Google, and Microsoft have $463 billion in the bank today. That was before the Bush. This is before the Trump tax cut. They're not going to buy. They're not going to create new jobs. They would already have done it with the money they already have sitting in their books. This ideal and this notion that because you give corporations a tax cut that they're automatically going to start hiring Americans doesn't make any sense because the proof is not in the pudding.
I don't know why corporations are always the boogeyman. And the last time
they're not the boogeyman, but the fact is they're not going to hire a rich person.
So that's a good thing. Richard, very briefly here, are there any concerns percolating in the Democratic Party of the fact that the economy is roaring, the president has had successes, the so-called Russian collusion narrative has fizzled, that 2018 could be a worse year than you think?
First, I think that the fact that we know nothing on this what's going on with Russia because we're not part of the Mueller team. Only the Mueller team knows what's going on. And number two, I think that Democrats, yes, there is a tax.
We all do leaks.
Hold on, Lawrence. Go ahead.
The fact that there is a tax that is passed, but let me tell you this: that when you see the actual benefits or the to-be benefits, as people are claiming, you will see that it's not all roses for the Trump tax plan. Not to mention the fact that it exploded our deficit by $1.5 trillion.
Lawrence, suddenly the Democrats are concerned about the deficit.
Well, you guys used to be concerned about the deficit, but not anymore.
It is astonishing to me that the Democrats are only concerned about the deficit when it comes to the American people getting more of their money. But
corporations getting more of their money.
I'm sorry, Richard, I'll let you talk. But when we're talking about cutting spending with all these programs that they like for free, they're never concerned about the deficit then. Only when we get to keep more of our money. I just find it very interesting.
Richard Fowler, Lawrence Jones.
I've heard a lot of things. Happy New Year's
My prediction for 2018 is that you guys become best friends.
Hey, listen, and you can catch the live show tonight. It's going to be a good one. It'll be me, Lisa Booth, Hannity,
that's
Jesse,
right here on the Fox News channel. You're going to be out in the crowd, aren't you, Richard?
I am.
Good stuff.
We'll be
Stay warm, will you?
Folks who are already out there right now. I saw them walking over.
Oh my goodness! I don't want to be there. You got it. Have a great time, Richard. We'll be watching. All right. Despite constant cries from the PC police, there is at least one job the liberal media thinks still only belongs to a man.
You think you can just come in here, make a mess, a big man in the coveralls, and come and clean it up?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Is taking out the trash strictly a job for the boys? Ooh, I got some opinions. We report, you decide. And the countdown to 2018 is on. And Rick is getting ready to cheers to the new year above Times Square. Rick, stay warm, brother.
Pete, it is New Year's Eve somewhere like Auckland, so I was just about to pop this bottle of champagne to toast the people in New Zealand, but I just got told by the people up here that I'm not allowed. We're going to figure something out so that we can toast in the new year coming up in just a few minutes. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It is pretty awesome.
Where is everybody?
Empty, and then soon it will be absolutely
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. You're going to turn now to your headlines. A California city administrator is gunned down in a resort city in Mexico just one day before his 50th birthday. Doug Bradley, the Imperial Beach Director of Finance, was vacationing during Christmas in the town of Zitapa. Witnesses telling local media they saw Bradley being chased by gunmen, Mexican officials claiming he was killed during an alleged robbery. U.S. officials are now working to bring his body home. A drunk comment by a former Trump campaign advisor may have sparked the investigation into Russian election meddling. According to the New York Times, George Papadopoulos told an Australian diplomat that Russia had dirt, and quotes, on Hillary Clinton during a night of heavy drinking last year. A few months later, the Australian government notified the FBI. In October, Papadopoulos pleaded guilty to lying to the Bureau about his contacts with foreigners. Democratic New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is giving himself a big fat raise. Authorizing the hike 2 years ago takes effect when his second term begins tomorrow. De Blasio's annual salary of $225,000 bumping up to more than $258,000, and that's an increase of nearly $34,000. Compare that to former Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who took just $1 per year.
Helps to be a billionaire.
It does. There is at least one job the liberal media still thinks only belongs to a man.
You think you can just come in here, make a mess, a big man in the coveralls, and come and clean it up?
Okay, I'm sorry. According to an op-ed in the New York Times, taking out the trash is still a man's job. The writer saying, quote, "It may be the last bastion of accepted 1950s behavior, and in this case, women are just fine with that."
I think that's true.
I have to agree with that, and shoveling snow.
I finally agree with the New York Times. It
Yes.
took all of 2017, the last day.
We want to know what you think. Who takes out the trash in your house? Email us at foxandfriendsnews.com.
Friends
and
at
those
Foxes.com.
are your headlines.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is that how it is in your household?
Yeah, my husband or my boys. I'm sorry, we girls, we don't do that.
I agree. I'm offended when someone else is attempting to take out the garbage.
Good.
The Times piece, though, seemed like it was a little bit targeted for people who live in Brooklyn, Portland, San Francisco, because they're talking about, oh, I don't want to take out all my Blue Apron boxes from all the cooking that I got delivered
like a little bit of time.
week.
All right, well, let's bring it out to Rick
point.
Reichmuth, who is live from Times Square. The ball is just hours away from dropping, and Rick is in the center of it all this hour. He's toasting to 2018 with Barefoot Bubbly.
Rachel, we're above it all. We're about 400 feet above Times Square right now. This is Jen Wall. You're the winemaker at Barefoot.
Yep.
And we have some bubbly to talk about this morning. I mean, it's already New Year's in some places, right?
Absolutely.
So, okay, the first question I have, when you're opening up a bottle of champagne, do you want it to fly? Are you supposed to have all of that champagne going?
No.
I don't want that because I feel like I want to drink that.
Yeah, it's all wasting if you're doing that. So no, you want to actually gently remove the cork, and you'll hear a slight pop, but you don't want any of your delicious champagne to escape.
That makes me feel better.
Okay.
All right, you brought a few drinks. Basically, it's like different versions of mimosas, bellinis.
Absolutely. Right? Well, Barefoot Bubbly is the official bubbly for Times Square New Year's Eve this year.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So we're excited, and so we have 11 bubblies, but we brought you 3. They're all good to toast with tonight or any occasion, but we thought it'd be fun to show people how to make a champagne bar for New Year's Eve.
Perfect.
So we have different fruits and juices here, and we thought we'd show you how to make a great bar.
All right, so basically raspberries, lemon, pomegranate are some of the things, juices.
Yep.
But the little juice, is there a ratio, juice to champagne?
I usually like to use about 25 to 30% juice. The rest is bubbly, and then you just garnish it with whatever you like.
All right, that's it. We're out of time. These are our drinks.
Wow.
We're going to toast to New Year's.
Absolutely.
Right now, and they've got these beautiful spill-proof cups, which you can get also.
Cheers to you.
Jen Wall, thank you so much, guys.
Cheers, Rick.
Happy New Year. Cheers.
I don't know if I would have a drink next to a 400-foot rock.
You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Well, speaking of not being careful, Rick's there, but Rick's going to be a big part of this. You know, it's been a big year in 2017 here on Fox and Friends Weekend. A ton of stuff has gone down. You've been a big part of it, so you'll probably enjoy this package as much as we are. We haven't seen it yet. It's the highlights of 2017 from Fox and Friends Weekend. Take a watch.
Today is Sunday, January 1st. Happy New Year, everybody. We are in 2017. Welcome to the couch. Welcome to the show.
Mornings, better with friends.
Guys, there is literally an alligator over to the side of the camera. This is the creepiest thing. Dogs have taken over our plaza this morning.
Did I say Doug? I meant dog.
Is that George? Why is my dog on?
Truly incredible to think of how much we have accomplished on our journey together. 2 million jobs. The stock market is at an all-time high. Massive tax cuts. Our border is now strong. Enthusiasm is booming.
Frigid cold will make for dangerous conditions for anyone planning to be outdoors to ring in the new year.
The NYPD says there is no specific credible threat to Times Square or to New York City.
President Trump showing support for a wave of anti-government protests that have broken out in Iran. The president tweeting, "I use social media, not because I like to, but because it is the only way to fight a very dishonest and unfair press."
The lack of respect that they have for the office and the President of the United States is uncharted.
I want to wish every American a very happy New Year.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Not from New York, but from New Zealand. You're taking a live look at Auckland, where the clock just...
Truly incredible to think of how much we have accomplished on our journey together. 2 million jobs. The stock market is at an all-time high. Massive tax cuts. Our border is now strong. Enthusiasm is booming.
Frigid cold will make for dangerous conditions for anyone planning to be outdoors to ring in the new year.
The NYPD says there is no specific credible threat to Times Square or to New York City.
President Trump showing support for a wave of anti-government protests that have broken out in Iran. The president tweeting, "I use social media, not because I like to, but because it is the only way to fight a very dishonest and unfair press."
The lack of respect that they have for the office and the President of the United States is uncharted.
I want to wish every American a very happy New Year.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Not from New York, but from New Zealand. You're taking a live look at Auckland, where the clock just struck 12 midnight.
The city is ringing in 2018 with a major, look at that, major fireworks show.
But we do still have a few hours left of 2017 here in the U.S., and we want to know, what is your New Year's resolution? Email us, friends@foxnews.com, or tweet us using the hashtag Fox News 2018.
I'll never fully understand how far ahead other parts of the Earth are. I know the Earth is round.
You know,
we have time zones, but it still always blows my mind. It's 6 a.m. here, but it's already the future there.
It's already the future.
Next year.
It's next year, yeah. I mean, what could happen?
A lot is happening.
We should ask him.
We should ask him, yeah, what's the future like?
Ask whoever was, ask the camera guy. Who's taking that picture? Somebody in a helicopter.
I think that's a feed. I don't know that that's a Fox News channel helicopter right there.
Could be a drone.
It could be a drone. You're right. We live in a new age. 2018. Where would the drones go? I mean, the possibilities are endless as we enter this new year. That's what's fun about the new year, right?
It is. That is.